So, an ex-army suspected terrorist escapes from prison. And allegedly, he was strapped to the underside of a van. Well, I've got a bit of a problem with that. Having been in prison myself, now I was in a category A/B prison, he was in a category B prison, but nevertheless, part of the perfunctory search of vehicles coming in and out is a mirror that goes underneath the vehicle, much like they used to do when they were getting in and out of their vehicles during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, or if you're at a checkpoint or whatever. And to strap yourself to the bottom of a van, you don't have the greatest amount of clearance underneath a van anyway. And how exactly would he have strapped himself to the bottom? I've had a message from somebody who would be more in the know, and they've suspected that the man may have had help. Now, I have to say that if you're wearing prison whites and you're found out and about, when I say prison whites, chef whites, because he was in the kitchen, then you wouldn't look too out of place. You'd look like a chef on his way to work. So that's one thing. But he's been described as a low risk. Let me work this out, right? So he's a suspected terrorist, and yet he's low risk. Having said that, though, if he was, put the boot or shoe on the other foot, if he was far right and considered a terrorism, that being, I don't know, whatever they come up with now for at the far right, which basically they'll pin anything on them, he would be considered high risk. Now, the question is, who within the prison service there would help? Now, there are some guards that are very, very strict and by the book, and they're honest and they're straight up. And there are some guards which apparently aren't. They make money out of helping get stuff to prisoners. But I think those are very few and far between, to be fair. I certainly wouldn't want a job in the prison service anyway, because you are dealing with a lot of the scum of the earth. And if you think about it, there was an American prison officer who said, we're prisoners too. Yes, we get to go home, but we are locked up with these people for, I don't know, 8 hours, 9 hours a day, depending on whether you're doing overtime, possibly more, 4, 5, maybe even 6 days a week. And it does change your perception of society when you're surrounded with criminals the whole time. It's just a side effect of the job. And stress, the permanent stress, the fact that they're going to attack you. Now, there was a prison escape back in the day in Northern Ireland, very much different to what we would have got over here. That was very organised and a massive amount of them, but they've managed to get weapons snuck into the prison. How the fuck do you do that? I don't know. But back to England, there have been people that back in the old days managed to get over a wall. But the prison that I was in, because it was an A/B prison, there was the outside wall. Then there was another fence with a big gap between the walls, so you walk between there. And then yet again, another fence, and then all the different types of barriers in between you and there. So you weren't getting out. Not just that, there was razor wire. Now, an interesting fact is razor wire is illegal in the UK, and the prison service have to pay a fine if they've still got it up. I don't know if they still have, but when I was there, they did. They had to pay a fine every year to have razor wire. Mad, isn't it? But I have to say, I find it very bizarre and very odd, the fact that they think this bloke would have managed to strap himself under a van. If it was a lorry, I could see that more. There's a bloody great chassis that runs through a lorry. You could hold on to it. And there's a lot more clearance. Modern day vans, there's not as much clearance and there's a lot less to hold on to. So I was thinking about it. At what point do you actually get off out of this vehicle? Because if you were to just lay there, and you see it in the films where they lay there and the vehicle goes back over the top. Not with a van, mate. That axle would smash the living daylights out of you and probably drag you down the road, because its clearance is about that. So that's out. You could try and drop off and then roll out the side, but if you get the timing wrong, you get run over by the rear wheels. So that's not looking good. I have to say, I would suspect that this guy has had some help. I can't confirm that. This is a hunch. But it's just from what somebody else has said to me who is a lot more in the know, and my suspicions. But there it is. But it's a suspected terrorist that's a low risk to the public. Well, what terrorist activities was he trying to do? Assumably, he was, by his very nature, a terrorist, allegedly, trying to harm somebody to further his social, political, or religious goal. And he's not much of a threat. What is it like? He was just a part-time terrorist. He just had a quick go at terrorism and didn't fancy it anymore and seen the light since he's been put in prison. Maybe he was posted to a position of terrorist for a few months, fulfilled his role, and now he's gone back to Joe Public. Maybe he's looked at terrorism and thought, this isn't the way forward, and thinks, I know, I'll go to be a policeman next when I get out. Well, he'd probably fit in there as well, wouldn't he? Yeah, I just wondered. But it does stink of shit. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. I'd just like to have seen if it had been a far-right terrorist. Yeah, that bloke they just arrested, well, not just arrested, he'd been arrested for a while, but the bloke that they've just sentenced to 22 years over in America, the Proud Boys, if he escaped, I wonder how they write that up. They probably say that you've got to lock all your doors and windows and that he's a massive threat to the public. It's always great when you watch them paint their narratives and then you watch how they report on stuff. It's just so full of shit. I hope people are seeing through this. Anyway, probably more news to come today. How are you all coping with the heat, by the way? I'm yet again in another truck. You see this thing here? That is a Mickey Mouse, cheap as shit, Chinese air conditioning unit. And, yeah, it doesn't fucking work. So at the moment, it's about 32 degrees in the shade during the day. And then we have to go onto site, which is so dusty, you've got to roll up the windows. So we've got the same problem as we had a year ago. Just a different truck. No aircon. Cooking my ass off. The only difference is between then and now is I'm significantly more hydrated so that I'm not suffering so much. I've lost a little bit of weight and I've gained a bit of muscle and I'm not struggling so much. But fuck me, it is warm out there. And yeah, sticky. The other person that I work with just got back from Romania. He said it was 38 degrees out there. I said it was no problem because it was dry heat. He said him and his missus came back here and he said it was just minging. They can't cope with it. So let me know how you're dealing with the weather. But this is Britain. Do you know, it's funny, I digress on this one. My granddad fought over in Africa against Rommel's lot. And while they were over there, because they got taken from cavalry, because they were still using the cavalry even in the Second World War, North Somerset Yeomanry, that was defunct, disbanded, whatever, and you had the choice to go into tanks or signals, and he was the one that went into the signals and went all the way back through Europe and ended up going into the camps. Anyway, he said that while we were out there, he said we were about as brown skinned as you can get. You couldn't get any darker, he said, but we coped with the heat out there, no problem. He said when we came back to England, he said the boys started fucking passing out, he said, from the heat. He said they just couldn't handle the humidity that we've got over here, and that is the thing. It's the humidity that's doing you. If there was no humidity here, this would be beautiful and pleasant. But there it is. We're in England. Get on with it. What do you do? Right, I'm off. I'll speak to you in a bit.